Well, you've probably heard of Comic-Con, but how about SatanCon?
People are hearing these stories from California.
Nestled within the very heart of California are alluring locations with fascinating tales that will leave you on the edge of your seat.
Who could think of the Museum of Death?
As we visit these strange museums.
From the famed Church of Satan to the haunted Lincoln Heights jail, here are 15 things that can't be seen anywhere but in California. Join us as we take you on an epic adventure, showcasing 15 things that can't be seen anywhere but in California. Number 15, the Church of Satan. Here's something you don't see every day. Located at the Black House in San Francisco, California, is a pretty controversial religious organization known as the Church of Satan. Established on April 30, 1966, by Antoine Szandor LaVey, the church is dedicated to the religion of LaVeyan Satanism, as codified in the Satanic Bible. LaVey was the high priest of the church until he died in 1997. But contrary to popular belief, these guys don't actually worship Satan, at least not in the literal sense. You see, members of the church view Satan as a positive archetype. This belief finds its root in the Hebrew meaning of the word Satan, which means adversary. He represents carnality, pride, and enlightenment, and a cosmos, which many Satanists perceive to be motivated by what can only be described as a dark evolutionary force of entropy that permeates all of nature and provides the drive for survival and propagation, inherent in every living thing. The establishment of the church itself was a symbol of defiance to the Abrahamic religion, which sought to suppress humanity's natural instincts. While many other organizations have been established over the years for the devil's worship, the Church of Satan refuses to recognize any of these cosplayers. This includes the Temple of Set, a separatist group that broke off from the church back in 1975, and the First Satanic Church, which also branched out in 1999. While many people hold on to their individual assumptions about the church, many of the leaders claim to have no involvement in the ritual killings and other criminal activities that are a frequent feature in the practice of Satanism. Number 14, Museum of Death. From the name itself, you should know this place is not your ordinary tourist spot. The Museum of Death, located on Hollywood Boulevard in Los Angeles, was established in June 1995 by J.D. Healy and Catherine Schultz. The idea behind this crazy location was to make people happy to be alive, while showcasing death in all its grandeur. The museum's original location was in San Diego, in a building that was said to have been the city's first mortuary. It all began as a hobby of the founders, who would write to any serial killer they were interested in, expecting a response. This response, if they got it, would then be showcased once a year at a special show. After years of exhibiting and collecting items related to murders, serial killers, and even self-homicide, the duo decided to establish a museum, showcasing their weird art. In the year 2000, the founders moved the museum to its present location, and it has since gained massive fame as the largest collection of serial killer artwork and other macabre exhibits. Some items you will find at the Museum of Death include photos from the Manson crime scenes, original photos from the Dahlia murders, as well as other relics from horrific events. Other exhibits you can find at the museum include the guillotined, severed head of Henry Landru, a body bag and coffin collection, as well as full-size replicas of execution devices. There are also several mortician and autopsy instruments, including pictures and videos of the instruments in use. If you're looking to channel your inner ghoul, the Museum of Death might just be your next destination. The museum itself is a self-guided tour that lasts about an hour, so you might just stay as long as your heart can take. Number 13, Black Star Canyon. Located in the Santa Ana Mountains, Orange County, is a natural wonder, whose allure goes beyond the picturesque landscape. Welcome to Black Star Canyon, known to be one of the most haunted locations in Southern California. Apart from being a perfect site for several cult activities, Black Star Canyon is also famous for cryptid sightings and various paranormal events. But what makes this natural wonderland even more famous are the many mysteries that were said to have taken place within its borders. There is an ancient Mexican tale of a woman who took the lives of her children and also ended her own life right within the canyon. Residents of the areas around the canyon speak of the ghost of La Lorena, who's forever condemned to search the canyon for her children. Beyond legendary tales, there is an actual recorded incident involving a man named James Gregg, who was shot to death in 1989 by Thomas and Henry Hungerford over a monetary dispute. But the most famous of them all is the 19th century Native American massacre, which was said to have taken place within the canyon. According to the story, back in 1831, local ranchers were being terrorized by a group of Shoshone horse thieves. To combat the menace, a well-known mountain man, William Wolfskill, decided to help track the bandits down. The thieves were later discovered in the canyon, around a campfire, with what appeared to be horse flesh and human flesh. However, the part about the human flesh remains a speculation. The ranchers were able to overcome the natives, who were caught completely by surprise, and they were all massacred. The ranchers were said to have desecrated the remains, leaving them in the canyon. It is believed that the ghosts of the Native Americans continue to roam the canyon, seeking revenge. However, this story has faced a lot of scrutiny, and many people believe such an event never took place, so you might want to take this one with a pinch of salt. Number 12. Bod Ghost Town. From a haunted natural wonder to a ghost town that will transport you straight into the California gold rush. Travel with us to Bod Ghost Town, an area filled with over 2,000 abandoned wooden buildings left in a state of abandoned decay. But back in the late 1800s, this was one of the epicenters of gold mining in the United States. Between 1877 and 1882, Bod was a bustling mining town producing up to $38 million in gold and silver. But today, this golden era has become a distant memory, and the infrastructures that once filled this promised land remain as testament to an unforgettable part of California's history. Today, Bod Ghost Town is a hot spot for tourist activities. You can take a peek into the church, schoolhouse, barbershop, and saloon, where bottles, desks, and other relics remain frozen in time. This ghost village is like walking straight into a time capsule, transporting you to one of the most prosperous eras in America, a time that now only exists in the hearts and minds of those who made their fortune from the loot. Number 11. Desert Art of Borgo. If you're an adventure seeker looking for some fun places to go in California, this unusual art exhibition might just be your next destination. Located in the Borgo State Park are 130 full-sized metal sculptures, specially crafted and strategically placed to attract tourists. The idea was the brainchild of Dennis Avery, the landowner of Goleta Meadows Estate in Borrego Springs, whose vision was to add these freestanding art to his property with original steel-welded sculptures created by artist Ricardo Briseda. Many of these artworks were made in the semblance of the prehistoric creatures that roamed the desert millions of years ago. Some of these sculptures range from prehistoric mammals to historical characters. As you drive through the roads that weave through the area, you will also find life-sized sculptures of wild horses in a nearby field, saber-toothed tigers caught in motion, and desert tortoises crafted to create the illusion that they're crawling through the bushes. Each animal was captured in motion, adding a sense of realism to the artwork. There's even a 350-foot serpent that undulates through the ground. It's like a magical wonderland right in the desert. Number 10. Cecil Hotel. Back in 1924, businessman William Banks Hanner built the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles, California, as a dream destination for both business travelers and tourists. The idea was to create an environment of ultimate luxury, giving every guest an unforgettable experience. But what makes this hotel famous is not the scenic views from the top floor, nor the Beaux Arts lobby, but because it has seen its fair share of deaths and tragedies many times. If the grounds of this hotel could speak, they would tell a tale that would make even the strongest shudder. The hotel was said to have been designed by Loy Lester Smith, and the construction cost over $1 million. That's about $21.2 million in today's money. The Cecil Hotel is located on Main Street, between 6th and 7th Streets, Los Angeles, and features 14 floors, with about 700 rooms. At the time the hotel was opened, the targeted audience was majorly international businessmen and middle-class tourists, But things took a different turn when the Great Depression hit, back in 1929. The initial prosperity of the hotel plummeted drastically, and the management was forced to rent our cheap rooms, both for long and short-term stays. In this new setup, guests had access to a personal room, but they had to share bathrooms with other guests. Because of the low cost and the proximity of the building to Skid Row, Cecil quickly earned a reputation for harboring criminals and people down on their luck. The grandeur of the early days was long forgotten, and the vision for which it was established became a long-lost dream. But things were about to get even worse. On January 22, 1927, Percy Ormond Cook became the first guest to take his own life at the Cecil. This kick-started a string of violence and deaths that earned the hotel its terrible reputation. It wasn't long before another death followed. According to a story in the Los Angeles Sunday Times, the following day, another man ended his life right within the hotel. After failing to fix his relationship with his estranged wife and son, former real estate dealer Percy Ormond Cook shot himself in the head in the hotel room. Then there was W.K. Norton, who was found ingesting poisonous pills in 1931. Army Sergeant Louis D. Borden was also said to have slit his throat with a razor at the Cecil in 1934, but that's not all. At least 8 hotel guests have fallen from the Cecil, whether by accident or intentionally. One other notable story is of a 19-year-old woman who threw her newborn from her Cecil hotel room back in 1944. Apparently, she wasn't aware of the pregnancy the whole time, and chose to dispose of the baby in the most unimaginable way possible. There have been too many mysterious and sad occurrences at the Cecil Hotel, so much that paranormal investigators have labeled it as one of the most haunted places in California. If you're looking for some spooky adventure, this might just be the place for you. Number 9. The Hopkins Building. Standing like a ghost from times past on Chester Avenue, downtown Bakersfield, is the Hopkins Building. This 4-story skyscraper has remained frozen in time since the summer of 1952, when a massive earthquake devastated the area. For 33 days, numerous seismic eruptions destroyed many buildings in the area, razing them to the very ground. Other buildings which were not totally destroyed by the quakes were heavily damaged and had to be demolished. In the midst of the chaos and rubble, some buildings stood tall, surviving the ordeal nearly intact. Then there's the Hopkins Building, stuck in a vortex between the two realities. While the building was not damaged enough to require demolition, it still wasn't safe enough to be occupied. So it remains as a silent reminder of a natural disaster that shook the city to its core, changing Bakersfield downtown forever. But not every part of this building is uninhabitable. Some ground floor businesses are still open, but upstairs you will find an eerie, dusty silence enveloping the once bustling offices. There's an advertising agency, a dentist's office, and even a law firm. But today, you can only hear the echoes of the typewriters clicking, the ringing phones, and muffled conversations from ages past through the dust and rubble that remains. Number 8. The Cedar Wildfire. At about 5:37 p.m. on October 21, 2003, a lost hunter was trying to set a signal fire when he kick-started a wave of events that led to one of the deadliest and most destructive fires in the history of California. At the time, at least 11 other wildfires were burning in the region. As the Santa Ana winds raged from the Cuyamaca Mountains, the embers of the flames flew southwest at speeds up to 6,000 acres an hour. Over the night, the fires blazed through parts of northern Lakeside, leading to the death of 12 people and countless injuries. But the fire was just getting started. By noon the next day, the firestorm had devastated many communities, leaving a path of death and destruction in its wake. As it swept through the region, hundreds of homes were reduced to ashes, leaving many homeless and countless dead. By the time the fire was finally contained on November 4, over 2,800 buildings had been razed to the ground, and 15 people had lost their lives. Some of the victims were trapped by the flames, which were driven by winds of up to 60 miles per hour, faster than they could run. Others were trapped in their car, as they tried to escape the blaze. Some of the victims were so badly burned that their remains were only identified based on the dog tags of the pets lying dead near them. The uncontrollable blaze burned through 273,246 acres of land in San Diego County, California. Number 7. Rodeo Drive. Welcome to Rodeo Drive, a 2-mile-long street in Beverly Hills, California, known as one of the most expensive streets in the world. The history of this famous street dates back to 1906, when Burton E. Green and other investors purchased the property that would become known as Beverly Hills, one of the most famous places in Los Angeles. At the time, the stretch of land was known as Rancho Rodeo de las Aguas, and the plan was to turn the region into one of the most luxurious places in the world. The establishment of the Beverly Hills Hotel in 1912 played a huge role in making the area a bridle path. Before long, the price of real estate had risen from $1,000 per parcel to $30,000 in 1925. Hardware stores, gas stations, beauty shops, and bookstores littered the streets, turning the area into a commercial hub. In 1961, Fred Heyman, who is often regarded as the father of Rodeo Drive, opened Giorgio Beverly Hills, the first high-end boutique on the street. More soon followed, including Aldo Gucci's store in 1968, Van Cleef & Arpels in 1969, Vidal Sassoon's Salon in 1970, and the Polo store in 1971. By the early 1990s, Rodeo Drive became a hotspot for both local and international tourists. It was so good that it even became named as the 4th most visited destination in the Los Angeles area. Today, Rodeo Drive is home to over 100 of the world's leading international brands, with exemplary architecture dotting its beautiful blocks. From humble beginnings in 1906 to becoming a worldwide attraction, Rodeo Drive has indeed come a long way. Number 6. Kern County Earthquake. The 1952 Kern County earthquake is regarded as the largest earthquake in Southern California since the Fort Tejon earthquake of 1857 and the Owens Valley earthquake of 1872. At about 4:52 a.m. on July 21, 1952, an earthquake of 3.9 magnitude hit the Kern County area, causing immense and widespread damage. The area affected by the quake was very large, as the effects were felt as far as Reno, Nevada. In Las Vegas, construction efforts were required to realign the structural steel of some buildings. Most people in San Francisco felt the quake only if they were on the upper floors of the buildings. Away in Los Angeles, there were severe power outages, along with some minor building damage. The quake was also felt in San Diego, where a building was reported to have been damaged by the tremor. Over at Owens Lake, some 200 kilometers away, a pipeline was said to have broken, causing damage to an ongoing mining operation. There was widespread panic and chaos, but thankfully, few casualties. In total, 12 lives were lost to the incident, and 18 people were reported injured. Property damage was estimated to be around $50 million, especially in Kern County, the epicenter of the disaster, where at least 100 buildings had to be torn down. The most shocking part of this disaster was the fact that it caught geologists and seismologists by surprise. The extent of the damage was said to have been disproportionate to the expert predictions. Of all the natural disasters that have devastated California, this one remains forever etched in the history books as one of the most catastrophic events to ever rock the state. Number 5. The Haunted Redwoods. Welcome to the town of Orick, a quaint small town with fantastic hiking trails that cut through the woods and even access the beach. As the sun shines bright and high in the sky, this town gives a false sense of normalcy. But as soon as night falls, the facade lifts, and the seemingly simple town reveals its sinister secrets. Visitors who stay the night do this at the risk of experiencing paranormal occurrences that will most definitely stay with them for life. Beyond the impressive amount of redwood burl and the constant activities of the woodworkers, there are tales of mysterious figures and dark spirits that inhabit this haunted spot. Those unlucky enough to cast a glance on these anomalies speak of robed figures and mysterious hooded spirits walking through the redwoods, before vanishing into the trails ahead. It's like a scene from a horror movie. For those who encounter these menacing entities, months of horrifying migraines follow, accompanied by horrific visions of ghosts and spooky creatures. The tales of this ghost town date back to 1890, when an unfortunate fire destroyed the Falk Mill, which was the lifeblood of the over 400 lumber workers who found their livelihood in the woods, along with their families. An unrecorded number of lives were lost, and the town was eventually abandoned in 1937. These redwoods are believed to be inhabited by indigenous spirits from several tribes who wander through the forest. To further compound the mystery, there have been many Bigfoot sightings in the area, adding another layer of mystery to the enigma of this haunted forest. If you don't mind going on a spooky adventure, then get your backpacks and put your paranormal gear on, because this haunted forest will give you an experience that will remain ingrained in your consciousness forever. Number 4. The Great 1906 Earthquake of San Francisco. April 1819. 06 is a day that will forever go down in history as one of the most disastrous days in the history of California. On this day, the Golden State witnessed a level of widespread destruction, the likes of which had not been recorded anywhere in the United States at the time. It was about 5:12 Pacific Standard Time when the ground beneath San Francisco began to shake with such a tremor that it burned itself into the history books forever. The massive earthquake that hit the city on that day will forever go down in history as one of the most devastating natural disasters in the world. This earthquake, with a magnitude of 7.9 and a Mercalli intensity of 6.1, destroyed about 80% of the city. The high-intensity shaking could be felt from Eureka on the north coast to faraway Salinas Valley on the south of the San Francisco Bay Area. Soon, several intense fires began to break out in the city, lasting for several days on end. The death toll on that day still remains the highest form of a natural disaster in California's history. The rupture in the Earth's core, caused by the quake, propagated both northward and southward, and its impact stretched for about 296 miles. The shaking that resulted from this was felt from Oregon to Los Angeles, and even as far as central Nevada. Even though the earthquake itself lasted between 45 to 60 seconds, the impact was beyond catastrophic. About 300,000 people were left homeless, out of a population of about 410,000, so pretty much everyone was on the streets. Within just 3 days, over 30 fires had erupted throughout the city, causing damage that was estimated to be about $350 million at the time. To put that into perspective, that's about $8.08 billion in today's money, and that was just the damage done by the fire. Although it has been over 100 years since this incident, the brutality of the natural forces has left an indelible mark on the landscape, inspiring more reverence for Mother Nature and her destructive power. Number 3. St. Francis Dam flooding. Back in 1928, the St. Francis Dam, located in San Francisco Canyon in northern Los Angeles County, California, failed, drastically unleashing mayhem on the surrounding area. The concrete gravity dam was built between 1924 and 1926. The collapse is regarded as one of the worst American civil engineering disasters of the 20th century. The death toll of at least 431 also puts the disaster as the third greatest loss of life in California's history, surpassed only by the 1906 San Francisco earthquake and the Great Flood of 1862. The dam was initially built to create a large regulating and storage reservoir that was supposed to be an integral part of the Los Angeles Aqueduct. The Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, which is now known as the Bureau of Waterworks and Supply, was responsible for the design and construction. Within just 7 minutes or less of the collapse, the reservoir was virtually empty, sending a 120-foot-high flood traveling 1.5 miles at an average speed of 18 miles per hour. It devastated everything in its path and remains one of the most catastrophic events to ever rock the state of California. Number 2. Underground tunnels of Los Angeles. During the Prohibition, some corrupt city officials created these long tunnels beneath the streets of downtown Los Angeles. One of such establishments was the King Eddie Saloon, which has been alive and kicking on the 5th and Main since the 1900s, when the Prohibition forbade the consumption of alcohol. For years, King Eddie appeared to the outside world as a piano store, but underneath the facility was a tunnel system, where those who wished to partake of the forbidden pleasure found their home. Apart from the service tunnels, there are also many abandoned underground subways and equestrian tunnels from the days before cars became a thing. There are many stories about police using these underground tunnels to transport prisoners, and banks using the cover of the darkness to transport large sums. Although these tunnels are now closed to the public, you might still be able to catch a glimpse of this subterranean passage, filled with the many mysterious street art, rusted machinery, and iron gates strategically placed to limit your exploration. Number 1. Lincoln Heights Jail. In 1927, the Lincoln Heights Jail in Lincoln Heights, Los Angeles, was built to accommodate the ever-expanding demand for more correctional facilities. The construction cost was about $5 million at the time, and the jail was opened in 1931. In the 1950s, the jail was expanded to accommodate up to 2,800 prisoners. Some notable prisoners that have been holed up at this facility include Al Capone and individuals arrested during the Zoot Suit riots and the Watt riots. But what made this jail even more famous was the unprovoked beating of 7 prisoners in 1965 in what came to be known as Bloody Christmas. The death of the prisoners gave Lincoln Heights Jail a terrible reputation that has remained till today. It remains one of the most notable haunted places in the country. The Lincoln Heights Jail has become a pop culture sensation for many years. The 1984 horror movie Nightmare on Elm Street was filmed at the jail's boiler room. The scene in Iron Man 2, where the main protagonist Ivan Vanko breaks out of jail, was also filmed at this location. It was eventually designated a Los Angeles Historic Cultural Monument on November 30, 1930. The Lincoln Heights Jail remains a haven for ghost stories, hauntings, and paranormal investigations. Its secrets remain elusive, and the horrors witnessed within these walls continue to echo throughout history, reminding us of a turbulent past and the need to introduce more human reforms in the prison system. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.